All right, we're ripping through another screen share breakdown right here. We're going to do it on Nick Pivetta of the Red Sox, who kind of started the season slow and then has absolutely took off on a heater recently. And he's a fun guy to look at. He's got a nasty fastball, a new slider that we're going to talk through, so let's get it going. All right, we're going to start on Fangraphs here with Nick Pivetta. 30-year-old, 6'5", big dude, over-the-top delivery. And it's kind of hard not to kind of take a peek at how good he's been, specifically in the month of July. And he's a guy that I think in models we've always thought has been okay. Like, models have always liked it because he's so over the top. He creates so much backspin on his fastball that it allows the pitch to work for the most part, and models at least think it works. And yet every single time from a results standpoint, it doesn't really match up. And that was more of the same of what we saw at the beginning of the year. So now we're looking at April 4th through May 31st of this season, when he was partially in the rotation, as you'll see here, and then got bumped out of the rotation, moved into more multi-inning relief role late May. But the results here just aren't great. Like, he's still K and above a K per 9, 9.49, but the FIP and the ERA aren't strong, right? He's giving up a lot of home runs. He's not really stranding runners. He's doing what Nick Pivetta generally does, which is underwhelm despite relatively good stuff. Generally, when you see a fastball with this much carry, it's something you're going to lean on, something you're going to be comfortable betting on, and that's just not the case with Pivetta. He goes to the pen for a couple months, comes back in July, and just has been unreal. 28 and a third, 43 strikeouts to 6 walks. It's just an astronomical number that's really going to push the FIP in a direction 271 that's very strong, given that's isolating off home run control, walks, and strikeouts. So it's basically looking at these three categories here. The Ks are astronomically high, the walks are low, he's in the zone a lot. He is stranding a ton of runners, 90% is huge. Giving up a reasonable amount of home runs still. He is still kind of homer prone, as I think a lot of these high carry fastballs guys that let it kind of eat in the zone are. But overall, the results have just been fantastic. And you got to think about what he's changed. And we're going to go into our portal here, as I like to call it. This is from TJ Stats. Thomas Nestico on Twitter did a really good job putting this together for me. It's essentially everything I think I need to break down a pitcher. It's what I do my pitcher notes off. I have a Substack writing that looks through guys every morning who've changed things potentially from their prior starts. This is what I use every morning. I'm in here, I'm looking at pitchers. I'm looking at short form movement plots, as you see on your screen right here. It's a little different than what Savant has on a long form movement basis. Short form movement is eliminating the effects of gravity, such that you'll see everything is kind of centered around this horizontal zero line, such that anything above it is resisting gravity to some extent, and anything below it is dropping more than just the force of gravity alone. And anything around that zero line horizontally here is only dropping as if it was only affected by gravity. So there's no kind of force that's actually acting on the ball, resulting force interpreted on the ball by looking at backspin or topspin here. So understandably, fastballs have backspin. That's the blue dots up here. And understandably, curveballs have some topspin, which is dropping more than just gravity alone, which are the yellow dots down here. And this is him in that July window we're talking about, where he had the really strong statistics here that we saw, the 14 K per 9, the 2 walk per 9, etc. I'm just going to pop it out into a separate tab here so it's a little easier to interpret and take a peek at. It's unbelievable, right? And it's really strong. Like, the key thing here to look at, velocity is really good. The Stuff Plus column here, this is Eno Saris' Stuff Plus via Fangraphs. The overall mix is at 125, which is incredibly strong. But each individual pitch, he's ripping 4 pitches that are all plus pitches. Eno's model, I think, has a standard deviation around 12. So anything that's above a 112 is going to be, in basically top 30% of that particular pitch type in terms of strength. Location's also really strong. He's generating above average chase. The XWOB on contact is impressive. It's hard to bet against these results, even though we've been duped by Nick Pivetta in the past. And now I'm going to flip to that April-May window we were talking about. And we're going to look through the differences between them. So I'm going to flip between them just to your eye. You can kind of see it go from red to blue at the bottom. You could also see, if you take a peek here, watch centrally here. So this is anything to the left of this vertical line here is going to be moving glove side. Anything right is going to be moving arm side. So these are going to be kind of your breaking balls. These are more your splitters, fastballs up there, curveball down there, as I mentioned. Anything going this way, glove side. Watch. This is, again, April-May compared to what he's doing in July. And you see the reclassifying those yellow dots as purple dots, just essentially saying cutter to slider. That's essentially the same pitch to me. The key thing I want you to look at, though, is the brown dots over here in our July window, the more recent window of his success. That's a sweeper. And every guy in baseball is adding a sweeper. I like the explanation of sweepers for me that I generally go to is that the league and certain organizations have a really good understanding of how the seams of a baseball interact with the air around the ball as it moves towards the plate. And I think the sweeper is generally a byproduct of that understanding. It's an understanding that you could generally use a couple grips, go to the two-seam sweeper grip. Some guys go down there, some guys spike, some guys are even up there and ripping down. Create set topspin out of hand and let the ball kind of lift and take off to your glove side. And it adds that movement generally for guys that were only able to throw, say, curveballs before and had trouble getting around the side of the baseball, can now use the seams of a baseball to create that lateral break. And essentially gives you something to the same handedness that works really strong. That's what sweepers are, in essence, in my opinion. It's really driven by seam effects. And I think that's a key difference in looking at sweepers now relative to maybe in the past when you've seen guys throw sweepers, Corey Klubers of the world, etc. Even 80s and 90s guys throwing sweeping sliders. They were sweeping sliders, and I'll call them sweepers, but I think it's just different now. We're more emphatic with the naming of the sweeper because we understand why the seams of a baseball are doing what they do and creating that extra lateral movement, creating that almost unexpected movement for the pitch to take off. And as a result of that, you have a ton of guys in baseball throwing it. There's limitations to it, but for Pivetta in particular, it's worked really well. You see a sweeper down here. It's only 8% of the time. It's primarily a righty pitch for him. He's 84 miles per hour, 4 inches of induced vertical break, so he has a little bit of lift. I think the average sweeper has around 2 inches induced vertical, and it's around, I think the average one's around 13. He's up at 15, so he's above average on 3 traits of the sweeper, on velo, lift, and horizontal, which is why he's netting out to a 138 stuff plus, which is essentially, I think, pushing into 2 standard deviations above the average, which is a really, really strong offering overall. He's generated above average whiff on it at 39%. The chase on it's really high. He's not in zone with it a lot, and the contact quality is actually not particularly great. But from a pure swing and miss standpoint, this pitch has been unreal for him. The unique thing about Nick Pivetta's sweeper, though, that I want to point out, and again, let's flip back to April, May here. When you see that sweeper wasn't there, he kind of scrapped the splitter, etc. The key thing I want to point out with Pivetta's sweeper is that his release height is high. I think the average release height is somewhere around 5'9"-ish, 5.9 feet. And he's up at 6.7. He's a very over-the-top guy. I'm going to rip some video kind of top right here and just take a peek at how he's throwing and how that release point works. That's why he's able to carry his fastball at about 20 inches of induced vertical break, which is 4 inches above the average fastball. But if you toggle up to this high of a release height, it's probably only an inch or two above average. But regardless, I think a lot of sharper coaches in baseball just want some kind of vertical break regardless of the slot it's coming from, especially when he's throwing at 95. There aren't a lot of guys in baseball getting 20 inches induced vertical 95, regardless of release height, regardless of extension or anything. But I often think of sweeper guys as even those overall who generally could create that lateral break. Sweeper guys generally are lower slot for me. I think of them as lower slot guys. The over-the-top guys is kind of where the advent of the sweeper becomes more interesting because those guys generally, as you see Pivetta down here, his curveball's really strong, pitch, ton of vertical break on it, it's pretty 12-6, works off his fastball really well, mirrors that pitch. Those guys just lean towards curve, right? But if you need to get something same-handedness out, guys who get behind the ball this well generally have a bit of trouble creating, you have less optionality of what you can do on breaking ball shapes when you get behind the ball that well. And that's where the sweeper becomes interesting, because if it's a curveball cue, which is a different orientation, like I'm not sure where Pivetta's curveball is, but let's say it's something there. Like if he can go here and cue curveball out of hand, we'll assume this is a 2-seam sweeper orientation, and cues curveball out of hand, he's retaining the same cue and using the seam tweak to give him something against right-handed hitters. These big carry guys who are over the top, getting behind the ball well, almost often have reverse splits where they're more effective versus lefties than they are righties because of that carry, because of the ability to throw some kind of curveball, which generally works, again, opposite handedness as opposed to same-handedness. The sweeper helps Pivetta right, which is huge for him, I think, overall. It's a really important piece of it. But it's unique for these over-the-top guys to throw this particular kind of sweeper. And what I mean by that is let's internalize the sweeper metrics again. 15 inches of horizontal. He's at a 6.5 release. So what I'm going to do is pull open essentially a sort of all pitches in baseball. This is via Alex Chamberlain's pitch leaderboard. It's just to export it into Excel. I really like this table, but I'm going to toggle on a couple things here. I'm going to toggle on sliders, and I'll toggle on sweepers as well. And what I want to show you is how few guys are able to get that amount of lateral break with that release height. I think that's one of the key things that's making Pivetta's sweeper really good, is that it's unique. It's coming from a unique kind of vantage point for right-handed hitters. They're not used to getting lateral break off that over-the-top delivery that Pivetta has. So we have sliders and sweepers in here. Let's take a peek and just do a quick sort. We'll say, so he's 83. Let's go like 82 to 85 on velocity for a slider. Let's set a minimum on pitches thrown, and we'll just go greater than 20. And now the key thing here, vertical release point, our column M. This is the main one that I want to take a look at. I want to go greater than, he's 6'5" with his release, so let's go 6'3". And you see it's going to cut down a lot, right? So now we only have, what is this, a handful of guys in baseball that are throwing sweepers in that velocity bin at this, or excuse me, sliders or sweepers in this velocity bin. 13 guys. We got 13 guys here, okay? And then the more interesting thing here, now we're going to sort by horizontal movement by sweep, right? Here you go. This is your list. This is it. It's Clay Holmes. It's Nick Pivetta. I actually have no idea who McKinley Moore is. That's something that I think popped recently because I don't remember doing that. I did this sort of a bit ago and it wasn't in there. Tanner Bobby's another one. Really interesting guy who's able to get, I think, a lot of lateral sweep off a higher release here. But you see here, Pivetta is the guy that I want to highlight here. I'm going to highlight him. That is our guy, right? That's, I think, what makes this pitch so unique for him is that you essentially can put him into a bin where you have no starting pitcher in baseball. And he doesn't have a ton thrown, but again, it's a pitch that he's recently brought into his repertoire and kind of broke out more than he ever has in his most recent outing. Yeah, this is it, right? It's a lot of lift and it's a good amount of sweep. There's basically no one else in baseball with that 14 inches of lateral break at a 6'5" or greater release height than Pivetta and Clay Holmes. You could put McKinley Moore in there. Man, I got to find out who McKinley Moore is. I have no idea who this guy is. I pulled this a bit ago. And we got caps lock on. I usually do these. I run through these ideas before I actually rip them through. And I remember pulling that and not having any idea who this guy... he wasn't actually in here at all. So now I got to take a look. He's a Phillies pitcher. Interesting. And he's got a... All right, the line's not that good here. Maybe this isn't the best sort to kind of prove out Nick Pivetta being really strong on his sweeper, but I do find that really funny. Now we know McKinley Moore is a Philly. You know, he's only pitched a couple innings, and he has a really high release point and a pretty nasty sweeper there. That's cool. But anyways, I want to isolate off the fact that, you know, actually, that's funny. Another Philly here in Taijuan Walker. So Phillies have two guys on this list that are throwing sweepers from really high slots. That might just be a general philosophy of give everybody a sweeper, which is definitely something teams are doing, despite them all saying that they have particular reasons why they're giving certain guys sweeper. I really think that a lot of them are just ripping them. You know, it's trial by fire. It's like a buckshot approach where it's just like let everybody throw and see who it works with. But again, the reason I sorted all this out for you is essentially to show that Nick Pivetta throws from a really high slot and has that horizontal break from his sweeper that very few pitchers in baseball see. And I think that's one of the reasons why, jumping back to our plot here on this, again, that sweeper works so well for him. Again, the chase is really strong. The swing and miss is really strong. I think it's helped his repertoire. It's not the only thing that he's done that's allowed him to be good. We could just also see a pure velocity jump here. 93.8. This is, again, April, May. 93.8 on the four seam. That's up to 94.8. It's a full tick of velocity. Stuff plus goes from a 115 up to 127. The curveball, same idea. It was 78.6 in April, May. Now it's 79. And again, the stuff plus is just jumping there. And then he's got kind of the slider cutter here. This is in April and May, for some reason, they called it a slider and a cutter. For me, that's just, it's the same pitch when you're jumping between. I don't know why they're splitting it out, but to each their own on that. It's the same velocity here. It looks like the same shape. 3 inches lift, 6 inches sweep. It's a shorter version of the sweeper, right? He's probably going to a different orientation here, so he's not going to blend these pitches too much of grip. But it's essentially a slider. It's like a short baby slider. Call it a gyro ball if you want. More gyro-y slider. That works really well off the sweeper, right? There's not much that's changed there aside from, again, velocity tick of a 1 mile per hour across the board is really helping him. But I think in particular, again, to right-handed hitters, that's huge. That is really one of the key reasons why I think he's been really strong, is the ability to sequence both those pitches together. This sweeper is purely a righty pitch for him. He's pretty much only gyro slider. He's pretty much mixing these 3 pitches here, are his fastball, this gyro slider, and the curveball to left-handed hitters. And then he breaks out the sweeper and also uses this secondary slider. And the last thing I'll give you here on Pivetta is that this particular kind of slider here, this gyro slider, shorter slider, works really well in terms of if you look at pitch pairings in baseball. 2 of the best pitch pairings, I did a video on this a while back, which I can link to above, talks about pitch pairing in relation to Shohei Ohtani and a couple other guys. Pitch tunneling, so to speak. It's essentially that these gyro sliders work really well off sweepers, particularly because they're both moving kind of glove side, and yet one's picking up a lot more break than the other laterally, which kind of throws off right-handed hitters. So if you were to go, say, outer third, with kind of your shorter sweep, let's call it the gyro bullet slider, and then go sweeper off that creates a really nice tunnel where things are breaking in the same direction, but they're breaking at different capacities and taking off at different points. such that it creates a really good sequence. It's one of the highest swing and miss sequences to throw for any pitcher in baseball. Now, maybe that's blending in a lot of relievers who just rip a ton of sliders. So that's why I find it pretty fascinating that Pivetta is able to kind of go back into the rotation and have a lot of success. I just don't see a lot here that makes me skeptical this won't work. The results are really strong. The location plus is strong. You know, the sweeper's good to righties. Like it's really interesting. I'll go back into this portal and just pull. I just want to see how he's been doing. Let's pull Nick Pivetta. I just want to see how he's been doing versus right-handed hitters in particular, from like an xWOB on contact standpoint. So like a damage statistic here, and I'll go July forward. It might take a bit to load here. This has been taking a bit. That's why I popped it onto these tabs, but just want to see the damage he's allowing if this decides to load to left-handed hitters. We could even try to pull just his splits here and just see his splits. Yeah, it's giving up more damage to lefties. So he's done better versus righties this season. Let's see, compared to last. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head. Pretty even splits guy here. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so maybe not totally proving my point. Proving my point that he's been better versus right-handed hitters, I think, because of the addition of the sweeper. But it is curious to me that he's allowing that much slug to left-handed hitters still. Usually that carry fastball works. But you see I'm highlighted on here, the righty improvement year over year. This season, and this is combining that April-May timetable. Regardless, he's doing pretty strong, 319 slug, and then you jump back to last year, it goes over 400, particularly to right-handed hitters, 409 here. I think that's strongly due in part to the sweeper. I think that's the ability to kind of get something laterally going away from them. And again, getting back to that idea of him having a different look on the pitch because he's over the top, such a high release. And I don't know if this is loading. Yeah, I'm running some errors here. That's totally fine. But again, that's the key thing for me on Pivetta, is the ability to add a sweeper, jump velocity. It seems like two pretty simple things, but I'm telling you, if you add a tick of velocity across the board to most pitchers and retain shape on everything here, which he's done, the stuff plus is going to go up, your results are probably going to go up. Add the sweeper and it's starting to kill righties. It's interesting he's kind of ditched this splitter here. I'd be curious if another team had more of a tolerance for that. We've seen like the Rays pick up some guys and just rip splitters more. Not entirely sure why the Red Sox haven't done that, but I think that could be a pretty interesting wrinkle if he continues to have not as strong success against left-handed hitting. But sweeper for Pivetta, it's coming from an interesting slot, creates a unique angle. It's not like your average sweeper. I know I could do 10 of these and rip through pitchers who've added sweepers, but this in particular for Pivetta I think is notable. The fact that it's coming from a high slot, and it's working really well for him. And he's kind of limited damage to righties. I don't see any reason why this wouldn't continue. Lefties is the thing to watch, whether he brings back the splitter, I think, but I'm pretty in on Nick Pivetta. Thanks for watching.